this. But nature has a way of surprising you, and this is the way Mars really looked. As I say, this very reddish dust that was created by iron oxides and weathering of Martian rocks. And notice the sunset picture on the upper left, the same airborne dust when illuminated by the setting sun. On the other side, it no longer backscattering, but forward scattering to the observer creates a bluish sky. Again, space art is a predictor of something that we hope will happen after the imaging team leader Thomas Much was killed in the Himalayas in a climbing accident. NASA renamed the Viking lander the Thomas A. Much Memorial Station, and Don Davis has painted the dedication plaque, which does exist and is at the Air and Space Museum, as it will look when it is placed on the rover by future astronauts. Carter Emmart, who Mike mentioned, played a key role in the early years, actually not just the early years, but the formative years of the Mars Underground, with his illustrations of Mars expeditions using concepts that are considered baseline concepts today, like using resources on Mars, greenhouses on Mars, etc. And finally, I just want to show you that this is still going on, full force today. About 15 minutes before this panel began, I checked my email, and I got this in my email from a wonderful artist in Germany named Detlev van Ravensway. And he is an artist who does all kinds of different space art. His website is vanravensway.com, and that's VANRAVENSWAAY. So it sounds like, it's spelled like it sounds, except for the last double A at the end. So vanravensway.com. And, as far as we go in space, the artists will always be able to go farther. And so we'll always play a role in leading us where we can go. Thank you.
I'm a man, so I can only do one thing at once. So while I'm trying to set up the IT, I know it's straight after lunch and I'll see a few people are struggling. So if we could all just stand up quickly and sit down and get the blood flowing, if that's okay. Great, thanks. Ready to go. The first presentation after lunch, I know from bitter experience, is always a bit of a struggle. As mentioned by Mikey, my name's Steve Hobbs, and as you can tell from my accent, I was not born on these shores. I really enjoy America. I'm glad to be back. It's good to see that those funny rat things with the funny tails that you call squirrels are still climbing up on the trees. I've been, like most people here, I imagine, I've been interested in space most of my life. My parents bought me a moon book when I was very young, and space art for me is a way of visualising what's truly out there. And I came up with a lot of my inspiration when I was driving tractors around and around in circles on my dad's sugarcane farm. I aim to help everyday people realise that yes, there is something more than 100 feet above their heads, and get them more involved in art. So there isn't a lot of words to this presentation because I am Australian after all, but quite a few images. Now I know this is about space art, but I threw this in. This is actually Mariner 4 frames 7 and 8, which for those who were alive at the time, these frames almost killed space exploration overnight because they can show a crater. One of the things I've been trying to do is reprocess old historic spacecraft imagery. Mariner 4 actually shot images through 2 different types of filter, and I was able to extract the colour from those. And these frames and the other 21 frames represent the first ever colour images ever taken of Mars by a spacecraft. This is from Mariner 6, famous Martian crater. I've never seen it published in colour, but Mariner 6 shot its close-up images through 2 filters, so I was able to colorise them. And this is one of my favourites from the Mariner 6, Mariner 7 series, flying over the North Pole. Doesn't look quite as good as the MRO or Mars rover stuff we're getting now, but to me that's the attraction. This is back in the days where it took several hours to get an image, and these were almost lost to antiquity, but thankfully they've been pulled off the old 7-track tapes and turned into digital files. Here's my favourite planet from its closest moon, Phobos. Valles Marineris, as most of us are probably familiar, would stretch from here to LA, and it's a rather large valley, in fact the largest valley in the solar system. Here it is from another angle. Valles Marineris is actually so big, part of it can be in sunshine and the other part can be in shadow, and in the early morning it tends to fill up with fog. You can just see the two of the Tharsis volcanoes right in the distance. This is I call it the cool part of Mars, because you've got a valley, the largest volcanoes in the solar system, plus a U-Butte drainage channel straight up north, all within a few thousand kilometres of each other. This is Noctis Labyrinth. This is heading closer towards the volcanoes. This is the end of the valley where it fractures. And this is it from a vertical perspective. I'm just trying to give an idea of the scale of this thing.
Want to say something about how you did this?
Yeah, this is actually a mixture of art and science. The Mars Orbital laser altimeter experiment, MOLA, was mentioned in an earlier lecture. I've actually used this data set and also used raster imagery of a Viking data set to create my colours. So this is essentially what you would see if you're in a spacecraft orbiting Mars. So this isn't based on fantasy, this is actual elevation data. I use a program called Terrigen, great program, but it's a dog to use actually. This is Valles, just to the north. I think the throughput of this is 100 times the output of Niagara Fall. That was what's believed to have caused this. This is what it probably looked like in the first billion years of its history when there was water flowing through it. Just an amazing system. Now we're not flying in low Mars orbit anymore. We're only probably the height of a light aeroplane thanks to data from Mars Express. A little bit harder to work with, but you can get a lot closer. This isn't Gusev. This is the other great crater called Holden Crater. Similar to Gusev, it's believed to be a source of an ancient lake. The drainage channel moving up northwest is believed to be the inflow of the water. We all like to look at the largest volcano on Mars, the Great Drainage Channels and Valles Marineris, but south of the equator, Mars looks like this. This is as much Mars as the cool northern hemisphere part, so I really wanted to do it justice. This is the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, or nicknamed the GAVSAT after the scientist who made it, overflying the Martian North Pole. This spacecraft has just been amazing, some of the stuff it's been getting back. Yes, Russia did have a Mars exploration program. Unfortunately, they had a lot of failures and the awfully bad luck of landing an unreprogrammable spacecraft in the middle of the worst dust storm ever observed on Mars for a long time. This is the Mars 3 lander detaching from its mother craft, and it actually worked for 20 seconds. Some people tell me that it actually did photograph an image on the surface, whereas others say that it didn't. I guess the mystery continues. This is my favourite Mars rover, Spirit, doing its thing. I was actually inspired to do this image by taking a photo of my father's bulldozer with the sun setting behind it. This, up until fairly recently, this was the most complicated thing I've ever modelled, and it took me a long time. For those who know a bit about 3D, there's over 1.5 million polygons in this thing. Every bolt, every wire, etc. had to be made. This is opportunity 3 years ago when we thought it might not survive the Martian dust storm.